when we were doing some filming with Fred Dibner, he was so keen that we include a big chimney that he was doing some work on. I think it was over near Burnley or somewhere. It was supposed to be one of the biggest chimneys in the area, and he used to put this scaffolding round the top, erect it all, and he used to say it looked like a crashed biplane on the top of this thing. And he wanted us to take a camera up there to include this in one of the films, because he said it was an absolute work of art and it was often missed when filming, etc. So I was having to go and see a client over in Leeds one day, and I thought, well, I'll go via Burnley where this tall chimney is and have a quick look at it. And I could see this thing miles away. It was massive. Right up in front of me, this tall chimney, I could see all this scaffolding on the top. And when I got there and drew into the yard where it was, Fred was there doing something, and Donald, the man that works with him, was handling some ropes. And Fred said, "Oh, Rog," he said, "just in time to go up." I said, "Go up what?" He said, "Come up the chimney with me," he said. "Come and see the top of it." I said, I mean, just looking up made me feel dizzy. So I backed away. He said, "Come on," he said, "be a man," he said, "you advertising chaps in pinstripe suits," he said, "you know," he said, "you're just a lot of I've forgotten what he said actually, but he said it, and he said, "Martin Lightning, the cameraman for the BBC comes up," he said, "and the chief violinist for the Halley Orchestra, a great friend of mine, he comes up," he said, "so be a man," he said, "you come up." So I don't know why I did it. I think it was this "be a man" bit. So I walked over and to the base of the chimney, and I remember Donald looking at me as if to say, "Don't do it," but I did. And I started to climb these rungs, and I mean, I got a pinstripe suit on, as Fred often referred to as pinstripe suits, and a collar and tie, and ready to see a client, not for climbing a bloody big chimney. So anyway, I got about 3 or 4 ladders up, and I realised I'd just made a most terrible mistake, because I don't like heights anyway. And I said, "I've got to come down, Fred," but he was underneath me, coming up. He said, "Go on," he said, "stick your knees out sideways," he said, "and lean back," he said, "and don't look down, just keep on climbing." I said, I can't, Fred," I said, I just don't like it. "Go on," he said, "be a man." So I kept on climbing, and I mean, it was terrible. I'm sure we went through a climate change. It went cold and windy, and I remember seeing these bricks go past very, very close up, and I remember seeing all the metal pegs he knocked in, holding bits of flimsy rope, holding these little ladders together. And I kept on reassuring myself that, well, at least he climbs these chimneys and he knows what he's doing, but they didn't look safe. And I was so tight up against this thing, it had ripped all the bloody buttons off my shirt, and well, it was terrible. And Fred kept on saying, "Come on, keep on going, keep your knees out, lean back, just don't look down." And I thought, God, if I let go of this thing, you know, that's it. There's no safety line or anything. And we seemed to be terribly high up. I could see for miles around, and it was blowing like mad. I mean, it was quite warm and sunny down below, but where I was, it was just like winter again. And then I didn't hear him anymore. It all went quiet, just the wind. And I sort of peered down between my legs, and I could the chimney seemed to disappear to a point below me, and I could see my car. It looked like a tiny dinky toy. I just wished I was in it instead of up there, and I could see a little dot which was Donald with all the ropes looking up, and then I could see Fred. He must have been about 50 or 60 feet below me, with his leg through a rung, leaning back, having a fag. And I said, Fred, I've got to come down." He said, "Keep on going, I'm coming up right behind you." So I kept on going, and then I came to the bit where the scaffolding was on the top. I mean, which he refers to like a crashed biplane. It looked like that. And the ladder came out at an angle. So I said, "I can't get round there." He said, "Go on," he said. So I then had to climb out, and I was just holding on by my fingers. And I thought, do you know, my fingers are only small, and if I let go, that's it, I'm dead. I'm sort of, as Fred said, it's half a day with the bloody undertakers. It was terrible. And it was, you know, it was hard to believe that you were really there doing that instead of being at home in bed or something. Anyway, he came up and gave me a push from behind and pushed me over the top onto these planks, and I just lay flat out like that. And he gets up and starts pirouetting round the side, smoking a fag, slinging bricks down the middle, which I could hear with the big thumpers at the bottom. He said, "Come on, Rod," he said, "just look," he said, "these men that built this chimney 200 years ago," he said, "they'd never been up this high before, they didn't have aeroplanes then." He said, "It was their first view from a height. Just look around," he said. He said, "It's wonderful. Lift your head up." I said, "No, I don't want to lift my head up." He said, "Go on, have a look." So I just looked round and I could see housing estates and chimneys as far as, it was like a Lowry landscape, miles below. I said, "I just want to lie down." He said, "It will get better as you get used to it." He said, he said, "Do you fancy a butty and a mug of tea?" I said, "No." He said, "I can get Donald to send one up on a rope." I said, "No, the last thing I want is a bacon butty which he was going to send up." So anyway, he's then pirouetting around the side. I just wish he'd sit down, but he didn't. Right on the edge, hands in his pockets, smoking a fag, chatting away. So I said, "Fred," I said, "how am I going to get down? That's my biggest worry." I said, "I really, really don't like heights, and I don't like it up here." So he said, "I've got a bosun's chair." He said, "I've got a plank," he said, "we can sit on some ropes." He said, "Onto a thing sticking out." He said, "I'll lower you over the side," which he did. And I clung on for my life. I remember clinging on like nobody's business until I got to the proper ladder. Then I got off this thing and started to climb down. And did I feel more relieved the further down I went? Mind you, my knees hurt like mad. But I'm telling you, when I got to the bottom, I vowed I'd never ever climb a chimney before. Now, I've done a lot of things in my life, sailed boats all over the place, done all sorts of things, but that was really and truly the most frightening thing I've ever done. Thanks to Fred Dibner.